Hi, imagine that you're standing on a cliff, but this isn't any type of cliff. Above you is the MCAT, your personal statement, your extracurricular activities, and your GPA. And you need to get across to the other side of this cliff. And so you need to build a bridge to the other side. And why do you want to get to the other side? The other side is a white coat and stethoscope welcoming you to medical school and becoming a doctor. And so, as a pre med student, you probably think you know exactly what you need to do to get into medical school. Unfortunately, that's probably not the case because 60% of students who apply to medical school are actually going to be rejected. So that just tells me and everybody else out there that what you're doing isn't working and you need to do something different. I know that you have this super strong desire to be a doctor. You want to help people. You want to make your parents proud of you. You don't want to disappoint them. You want to have a reward for all your hard work and efforts. And you can only imagine yourself being a doctor, nothing else, and you just need that one chance, that one shot to show outcomes that you have what it takes to be accepted into medical school because you have all this promise and potential that you're going to be a great doctor. I know it. I understand it. I was once in your shoes before as a pre-med student, so I know how this whole process works. And I know what you're really anticipating on. You're anticipating sending out your medical school applications, actually being invited to medical school interviews, but then the biggest thing is you cannot wait until you get a phone call. It's probably going to be from an unidentified number or an area code that you don't recognize on your caller ID. And then you're going to pick up the phone, and somebody on the other line is going to confirm that it's you. And then they're going to say, "Congratulations, we want to welcome you to medical school." And that's going to change your life. In 60 seconds, you went from no hope, just dreaming, to having your life change forever. That now you're accepted into medical school and you're going to be a doctor. Your parents are going to be speechless. Your parents are going to be proud. They're going to be screaming. They're going to be excited. Your dad, who usually doesn't show too much emotion, he's going to be smiling. He's going to be grinning. And it's going to just be a huge celebration. You can't wait to post on social media, call family and friends, and let them know that no matter what happens, you're on your way to become a doctor. However, that is a dream. That's what you want to happen, but are you doing everything to make that possible? Here's the thing. I told you you're standing on this cliff. There's some things that you need to do on your end. You need to have that strong GPA. You need to have a super top MCAT score. You need to have a compelling personal statement. You need to get the right types of letters of recommendation. And you need to find the appropriate extracurricular activities that are actually going to set you apart from everybody else. And then if you're lucky enough to get through all of that process and you're actually going through the process of applying, you need to make sure that you actually write your secondary applications in a manner that the medical school wants so that you get invited to a medical school interview. And then when you're on this interview, you have to outshine everybody else without sounding cocky or arrogant. You need to really know how to sell yourself to med schools and give them what they want and not just what you think they want, so that you can ultimately get this acceptance. And so there's all these variables and factors at play in helping you get into medical school. You already know that. You're pre-med, you're smart. You know that basically the odds are stacked against you. And you have to think about this. From a medical school perspective, they're actually looking for reasons to say no to your application. They have too many qualified applicants where anything could be a disqualification for you in getting into medical school. And so that's the mentality that you need to have. I've seen students rejected by what they wrote in their personal statement. I've seen people rejected just by the picture that they sent to the school when school asked for a headshot. These things you guys are thinking, oh, Dr. Spear, that's a little obscene, that's a little pushing the limits, but that's actually the case of what happens. So you need to be aware of how competitive this process is of getting into medical school. And I want you to succeed. I want you to be where you're in the hospital, you're seeing patients, you're treating patients as a medical student, and then you're going to see a scribe or a pre-med volunteer in the hospital. They're going to look at you in your short white coat with your stethoscope and say, one day, I hope to be in your shoes. But you need to lay the groundwork and a foundation to get across this cliff to the other side, to that medical school acceptance. Sure, you can go online and find all this random information, but when it's such a high stakes process as getting into medical school, that's not what I would rely on, because there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there. People tell you things that might have personally worked for them, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. And half the time, the people who get into medical school, they couldn't even tell you why they got into medical school. So you have to do something different. You need to be really on top of your game to really get yourself that competitive advantage, so that when an AdCom looks at you and your application, it's a no-brainer decision for them to admit you to medical school. And so I know you're thinking, wow, that's a lot. Maybe I'll just ask somebody who's been in medical school. I have an aunt, uncle who's a doctor. I have a cousin who's in medical school. Or I know some people from my school who actually went in and got into medical school. So I'm sure that they could guide me. Yeah, you can totally try that. You can do it. You can see how that works for you. And unfortunately, I've seen students who take shortcuts. They do that. They have a relative, but these people, they don't have a vested interest in your success. Yes, they want you to do well, but they don't know your application in and out. They're not going to be on the phone with you. They're not going to be responding to your emails, and they're not going to be editing every piece of your medical school application process. So obviously there's gaps. That's how you fall off the cliff, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to fall off the cliff, and when you fall off the cliff, that means no medical school. Or as the words of my Harvard organic chemistry TA, he would say, no medical school, no surgery, no millions, all down the drain. And then think about the disappointment of your parents and having those awkward conversations with family and friends when they ask how the medical school application process is going, and you don't have any interview invites, or you've been rejected by all the schools and you're trying to figure out your plan B. That's not what you want. Nobody wants that. You work too hard over the past several years taking these classes, organic chemistry, we all know how we love that, pushing those electrons around, physics, biochemistry, and then even let's talk about the MCAT, just even getting ready for the cars section. A lot of students have trouble with that, but you got to a point where you master this stuff and now you're applying. So you got to make sure that you're doing everything to make sure that you're successful and that you actually get in so that your hard work pays off. And I want to help you with that process. I actually help students get into medical school. I was a former Pre-Med Society president when I was an undergrad at Northwestern University, and so I got to meet all of the medical school admissions officers from the top med schools throughout the country, because we hosted an annual medical school day where we invite them to campus. So I've been working with them over the year, got to know about them on a personal basis, and also see what do they actually expect of students. The stuff that they don't post online, that you're not going to see on your website, that you're not going to find in Student Doctor Network or Reddit, because that's all going to be hearsay, not really factual information. You want to hear it from the actual gatekeepers, the people who decide whether you get into medical school or not. And I know that I can help you. Last year, I worked with students who had diverse backgrounds. One student, we really had to work really hard with him on his personal statement, had so many revisions and edits of that. And I to be honest with you, it was a process working with him, but he stuck with it. He followed my advice. We did all the revisions that we needed to do, and he got into his top choice medical school. He wanted to stay somewhat local because of family and community, and so he was just ecstatic about that process that happened for him. And then I have another student. They are what you would say they had a red flag in their application. They actually were kicked out of school for a year because of some things that they did. However, they still wanted to be a doctor and get into medical school. So you know this is going to be an uphill battle for them. That's not easy because remember I said med schools are looking for reasons to say no. So I really had to cater their application. We had to turn this negative into a positive and spin it the right way. And that's kind of an art and craft to that most people, especially applying to medical school, aren't going to know how to do that because you're going to probably come off the wrong way and AICOMs are going to just say no to their application. But can you imagine being kicked out of school and then working with me, getting you up to par, getting everything where it needs to be, and then getting into medical school? Not only one medical school, but having multiple medical school acceptances. That's what I can do for you, and that's what I do for students. I am Dr. Spears. I'm the founder of drpremed.com, and I want to share with you about my pre-med to MD application packages. This is a service where we work together one-on-one, going through all parts of your application to get you ready for medical school so that you can have a successful application process. There's things that you just don't know. You haven't applied to medical school. You don't know what to expect in this process. So you need somebody who can hold your hand and guide you step by step through this process to help you avoid any pitfalls that can derail your chances of getting into medical school. Because I want you to be one of those success stories and a person who actually gets into medical school. You're qualified, maybe you're just a diamond in the rough pre-med, and I got to just polish off your edges, move some things around, and help you transform so that when medical school looks at you, they know you're the applicant that they want to admit into their medical school because they see all that promise and potential that you believe you have, but you need to compose yourself in a way that's going to allow you to get into medical school and let the AdCom see that. And so I want you to reach out to me if you're interested in working with me to ensure that you get into medical school. Last year, everybody who worked with me, they got into medical school. When I talk about the 60% rejection rate, and then that means that 40% of people get in. And usually the 40% who get in, they're working with somebody who's been through this process so that they can have basically what's called their competitive advantage so that they can get into medical school, live their dreams, go to that white coat ceremony, have their name called, parents clapping, loud applause. The dean puts the white coat on your shoulders, welcomes you to the field, the profession of medicine, a noble calling. And is this something that you would want for yourself? You cannot leave things to chance. You cannot think you're going to figure it out on your own or that I'll just ask somebody, I'll research online. That doesn't get the job done. If that was the case, everybody who wanted to be in medical school would be in medical school. But you and I both know that's not the case. So if you want to work with me, somebody who is basically going to be your pre-med dream team that's going to get you across that finish line, get you on the other side of that cliff to your white coat and your stethoscope, reach out to me and I can share more about this program. I can see if you're a good fit. You can see if it's a good fit for yourself too. And then we can go from there because I look forward to helping you achieve your medical school dream, but ultimately get into medical school and become a doctor because that's the end goal that I know you want and I want it for you just as well.